Here we are. Easter round is in the books. We've got 9 games to go over, Jesse. Like we said in the podcast at the start, some good ones, some bad ones, some surprise results. It's all here. Let us know what your thoughts are about the games down below as well. Get involved. Also at SamPerfect_AFL as well, because we want to hear your thoughts as always. Let me get these scores up, Jesse. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
I can take us through the first one while you do that, Liam.
No, it's okay. I got it. It's right
Look
here.
at you go.
It's right here.
You
Round
are
6,
flying.
Jesse. We're starting on Thursday night at the Gabba. Brisbane Lions 7-13. Off to a cracking start, my goodness. 7-11-53, getting pantsed by the Collingwood Magpies 16-9, 105 in front of 34,082. Yeah, I was surprised by this result, Jesse. I was expecting a close, hard-fought game. And in the end, from what I saw anyway, it felt to me like the Lions wanted to kind of play a bit of a tough man game, and the Pies just played them like a fiddle. They were like, yeah, we'll play that, and then just play good footy. And you guys will be running around trying to get under our skin and trying to be all argy-bargy, and we'll just kick goals. And what are you going to do about it? Absolutely nothing. That's how it felt to me. It felt like the Lions' game plan was all sorts of wrong. What are your thoughts on it?
I agree. Across the board with you there, Liam. I think certainly the margin surprised me. I think looking back, this result was potentially a bit more obvious than we thought. Collingwood have been flying. Brisbane have had a really tough interrupted start to the season, and they're playing a very good side. You know, those slip-ups can happen, but I agree. I think Brisbane, for whatever reason, just weren't mentally on Thursday night, and that does happen. Not time to panic just yet. They're still a very good side who've had a bad loss, but Collingwood now, I think they've really stamped themselves as a contender, and we'll probably talk about this a bit more next week, Liam, in terms of who are contenders, pretenders, and West Coast and Melbourne's. But I'm alarmed. I'm alarmed in the sense that it got a big number on the scoreboard against Brisbane, and they weren't able to score themselves. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's not worth panicking just yet, because you look at the Lions' record across the season.
It's pretty good.
They're doing pretty well. I think they're going to be okay. There was a big alarmist reaction to this from a lot of sides of the AFL media landscape. And look, I get that. It's a bad loss at home. But keep in mind, Collingwood are flying at the moment, and Brisbane have been playing with a result like this. They've been having to come from behind week after week after week. That's not sustainable. And eventually that's going to get you.
Yeah.
This, hopefully for Brisbane's sake, is a hard reset. Gives them an opportunity to just digest, remember what it's like to lose, because they haven't done that in a very long time.
Yep.
And give them that extra kick up the backside to go again and continue to roll off those wins to get them 15, 16, 17, 18 wins across the season.
You know, you raised a good point. I think that's been their tail of the tape for a little while now, the whole come from behind victory. And I wonder if that led into their frustrations a little bit, was the fact that they had no answers for the Pies. They had nothing. And it just seemed to frustrate them and get at them. And when that happens, down the drain you go. Down the drain you go. Dacos brothers both had pretty cracking games, as they usually do. I think both of them together. McStay's continues to look very good against his old side at the Pies.
Can we now end the narrative that Nick Dacos can't win a hard ball or only gets cheap kicks? Can we end that narrative now? Because it's been a bit tiresome for a while. But if you watch that game with 2 eyes, or even with 1 eye, or even just listened on the radio, you could probably get the sense that Nick Dacos was not only everywhere, but he was earning his footy too.
Yeah.
And I think it's always very easy to make grandiose predictions. It's pretty obvious, I think, if he stays healthy, he's going to get a Charlie at some point in his career. If he can turn out performances like this, I think it will be sooner rather than later.
They're a formidable duo, the Dacos brothers. They've done a good job in raising those two. Good footy pedigree in that blood. That is for sure. All right, Jesse. Anything else to add about this game before we move on to Friday?
I reckon let's head on to Friday, because these games, plural, certainly turned up some surprises.
Oh, Friday, the round of the blockbuster. Friday, we started Good Friday, we started at Marvel Stadium, North Melbourne, 11-5-71. Another pantsing, but a bigger pantsing, 24-9, 153 for the Carlton Blues in front of a pretty healthy 46,373. Obviously, public holiday helps. All right, go for it, Jesse. Talk to me.
Look, really disappointing from North, and unfortunately, those 4 words, really disappointing from North, have been coming off my tongue a lot in the last month, and it does feel like a pretty sharp regression from them. And you've made reference to that in your key takeaway there, Liam, that it feels like they've taken 30 steps back. And I think at this point now, I've been really resistant to pile on any form of heat on Clarkson. But I think you look at results like this, you're quite concerned, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it's a strange one. And because the start of the season, we were both very excited. We tipped them both in this game because we were quite excited about what they've been doing. And it wouldn't be the first time in the last 4 weeks where they've lost, where we have tipped them because we're like, nah, something's going to click. And every week it just seems to get worse and worse. I don't know what it is because, I mean, the list is actually not bad. It's a good young list. Good stalwarts. We've spoken about this before. Good stalwarts, good old heads out the back, keeping everything together. But the last couple of weeks, they just look lost at sea. And they don't know what they're doing. It's just I'm not too sure if it's a confidence thing and what we were conceiving. No, what we thought were signs of improvement was just a confidence ride. They were just riding the wave of confidence, and after they lost that first one, it just kind of dropped off a cliff. Because that's kind of how it feels. It feels like they've kind of gone into their shells a little bit, and it's not fun. It's not fun to see. But look, if you're a Carlton fan, you're very happy after a really rough start to the season, a couple of big wins against some not very good opponents. But you got to get them. You got to win them when you do, and this is a very convincing win for the Blues.
It was very much second gear for them, and I think a lot of their key stars didn't have big games as well, which is a big positive for them. One thing I want to talk about, though, in a negative light for Carlton, is Tom de Koning, because I don't think he's having a very good season at all. He was, I think, fairly well dispatched by Cherry in a 80-point loss. So I think you're winning clearances almost in spite of him as Carlton. Honestly, if you're talking 12 mil over 7, which is what the apparent offer from the Saints is, if I'm Carlton, I'm probably okay with this.
See you later.
It's not to say that he's not a very good player, but he's not having your contract season, almost your Blake Acres contract season, where you turn up, you put in 22 excellent games of football, and you get max value.
Yeah,
it honestly doesn't feel like he's having a very good year. And yes, Carlton in general have not had a very good year, even with their 2 very recent wins, very much helping their percentage go straight up in the grand scheme of things. But no, I think acknowledging that Pitnet's got injury problems and probably is just an okay ruckman, acknowledging that, I think I wouldn't want to be matching 12 mil over 7 for de Koning. I wouldn't be offering him 12 mil over 7 if I'm St Kilda either, but obviously we know they have the money to spend. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried about that for Carlton, and I would hate to see them splurge on a player like de Koning, who maybe isn't quite as certainly consistent and reliable as that level of paycheck would lead you to believe.
Here's a question for you. Not that I expect you to know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Mm-hmm. When, say for example, Saints offer him 12 mil over X amount of years.
Yep. Year
goes on, de Koning gets pretty, doesn't have a great year. I guess, of course, they're within their rights to be like, that's our jokes. You actually don't. We don't want that anymore. We'll renegotiate to, I guess, until the dotted line is signed. Nothing's official, obviously, but
nothing's done until it's done.
Yeah, sweet.
We see things get changed around all the time. Players want more money. Players get offered less money. Players move.
How about 4 mil over 12 years? Would you take it?
Is that like the new Jamara contract now that he's very much?
Geez, that's a story in itself. Goodness me. Apparently, it's the AFL's problem to deal with now. Let's move on to the next game, which is Friday night. We are at Optus. The Eagles, oh my word, very nearly get it done over the Bombers. Eagles 11-9, 75, defeated by the Bombers 11-11, 77 in front of 46,080. This is a bit of a heartbreaker for the Eagles. Not because they lost, which is always going to be a heartbreaker, but because they played easily their best game of footy this year.
Yes.
And even their best footy was not enough to beat a really average Essendon side who were already pretty bad.
Let's not mince it here. Essendon were rubbish.
Yeah.
And they were okay last week against the rubbish Melbourne, and they've also been fairly rubbish throughout the season. This is not a good Essendon side. And the fact that are still building fitness, Peter Wright kicked over half their goals.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've been saying it since last year, Liam, about this Essendon side in 2025. Where are the goals coming from? If Wright's not there, or he's not having a good day, what's going to happen? If he's a week off fitness and doesn't play this game, I know it's not as simple as taking out 6 goals, but you're probably taking out 3.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Draper's done his Achilles now as well, so Draper's going to be done for some time.
Almost season, you would think, with a
easily
bad Achilles. So I look at this and think, first of all, they got the 4 points, so far from the end of the world in that regard. But gee, I think some senior players are really letting them down at the moment. You know, guys that, or not even senior players, guys that have been around for long enough that should be further ahead of where they're talking. Guys like Hobbs. I think you throw Roberts in here. I think Durham had a really poor night too. And that was disappointing too. But a lot of the guys that they've hitched their wagons on, maybe Essendon is worth a deep dive in a few weeks as well, talking about what they've done with the last 10 years. Because I think, like Fremantle, the answer is really not much. Yeah. I'm really quite concerned at the way Essendon went about this game, because it just felt like they were scared of West Coast, and without punching down, I don't really think that's the right way to approach a side that hasn't won a game in a season yet, and yet there was another club that did this the day after too. But it just seemed like a really poor performance from Essendon, and West Coast. I mean, I think they probably should have won this game.
Yeah, 100% they should have won this game. That's why I'm saying it's a bit of a heartbreaker, because I think any Eagles fan would be walking out of Optus that night going, why couldn't we get that one done? What was missing from that? Because they looked the better side the entire game, you know, and I think I was kind of pulling for them. I was like, come on, Eagles, get it done.
They had control for the first 3 quarters.
Yeah. It is their end game. Their end game kind of fade outs is still an issue for the Eagles, unfortunately. But just quickly on the Draper thing as well. And this is another question about the welfare of the players. 3/4 time he was talking to trainers, and he was already saying, "Oh, look, the foot's a bit proppy." They chucked him back out there rather than going to assess him. 2 minutes, 3 minutes into that fourth quarter, whatever it was, that Achilles is gone. Potentially, they could have sat him out and rehabbed that for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, if they just made that call and just took him off and said, "Look, let's not risk it. Let's not risk it." But they chucked him back out there. It's just an interesting one with AFL. I know the players have a lot to do with that as well. The players saying, "Yeah, I'm good to go. I'm fine." But I'll tell you what, that's gone from potentially a 5 or 6 weeker to a season not back until midway through, you know, pre-season training. A bit scary.
Look, I don't want to go too harsh on this, but what I will say is that when you're training or doing something, whether it's football, and I'm not a footballer, but I do enjoy a little jog, and you know when something's sore and when something's not right, and there's a key difference now. Now, Sam Draper has been an elite athlete now for a number of years. If he's talking to trainers saying, "Guys, I don't know," that should probably be a sign.
Yeah.
When you're active and you move around a lot, you know things. Like my right calf, it's been annoying me for 2 weeks. And I'm like, this is annoying me. But it's not stopped me doing anything, because I know it's just fatigue. And I can work through it with icing and whatever. And this is boring and irrelevant. But the point I'm trying to make is is that you know. And you know when something is on the verge of going very wrong.
Yeah. Well, we've done it long enough, Jesse. We've avoided talking about the inevitable, but I think we should move on to Saturday morning at the MCG. Melbourne 16-11, 107, defeating the Freo Dockers 14-13, 97 in front of 25,202. Listen, not much to say about this, but Melbourne wanted to win that game really badly. And Freo, once again, which is not the first time we've said this year, looked very disinterested, looked very apathetic towards the entire being at the MCG to play Melbourne. One of two chances we get to play the MCG this year. A great chance to solidify a win coming into our run of 4 games that are going to be very difficult. And we absolutely botched it. But let's talk about Melbourne first, because as you say often, the winner goes the spoils. Pickett was amazing.
Yes,
he was like the energy that the team needed, big time. You had Gawn, who was absolutely killing Sean Darcy around the field. Like, what was it, 4 touches to 28 or something like that? Not let alone the hit outs that to advantage and the clearances and everything. It was just a great effort from Melbourne, who notched up their first win. What do you reckon, Jesse? Do you want to go head on? Do you want to jump into it? Do you want to go apoplectic or talk nice?
I think we both know I've almost mastered the tightrope of this. Of being very, very firm.
Yeah.
But also trying to keep things relatively in perspective.
Sure.
Let's start with Sean Darcy. I don't want to be mean here, but Sean Darcy is unfit at the moment.
Yeah.
Now, Luke Jackson going down with the hamstring injury is not Sean Darcy or Justin Lemieux's fault. It is not within their control. But Darcy is not ready for AFL football as things are. I will be borderline furious if he's selected next week because he's not fit. He can't move. Two of his 4 touches were goals, which is great. But that's when he's ended up 20 minutes out from the goal directly in front. One of which was in the last second. And gee, didn't he take long to take that set shot too? Like, I know the game was pretty much over, but get on with it.
Yeah.
So that, to me, honestly, I know Reedy hasn't been perfect. I know that. But Reedy is fit. Yep. He should be playing.
Yep.
While Sean Darcy can't see out a game of football, or even frankly get close to seeing out a game of football, he shouldn't be in. I don't care how much he's being paid, he shouldn't be playing. And I've had this issue since the Essendon game last season with Darcy, where I think fitness has gotten worse in the last 18 months. Because even when he had a different frame, he was getting around the ground a bit. And you weren't expecting him to be, Lewis Jetta.
Sure.
But he was able to see out games of football. Acknowledging he's come back from an interrupted preseason and an injury, that's all fine. But he's not fit. So he shouldn't be in the team.
Don't rush him back. Very simple.
Please stop playing Draper on small forwards. I'm a big Draper guy. I think he's got really good intangibles as a taller defender. Stop playing him on small forwards. It doesn't work. It's so naive to think that just because you put someone in a new position, they're magically going to be good at it. That not for every Rory Lobb, there's a Chris Tarrant.
Yeah.
Please stop doing that. It's infuriating because then Draper now starts to see his position in the side come under scrutiny when there's guys like Brennan Cox who are playing worse that are going to keep their position.
Yeah.
I'm gonna name names, I think, today across the board for Fremantle because, frankly, the performance was nowhere near good enough. I think Oscar McDonald is a positive. I think for a guy that's had a year off football and then had to work his way back in, I thought Oscar McDonald did fine. And I really couldn't fault his performance. He won't play as soon as Jackson's back. That's probably okay. But I think he did as well as you could have hoped. Aish got the late call-up. Did you see Aish do anything wrong?
I don't think I saw Aish do anything.
I mean, he had 14 touches.
I know.
He was good with the ball by foot.
Yeah. No, I think Aish is one of those players who you never see, but he's always there doing the bits he needs to do. Like I saw him a few times at the back, getting the ball out of congestion so the team could run forward. I saw that. That's good. We like that.
He's clearly best 22.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he's only playing because Chapman got a last-minute illness.
You are part of the Aisha Baby fan club. We all know this. We all know this, but for good reason. You don't like people just for the sake of it, Jesse. There's good reasons for it.
It's very hard to find your way into that club.
I'm still trying.
Yes, you are. But look, I mean, like, and I think Warner had a perfectly fine game as well. I don't think he was brilliant, but I think he was okay. But I don't see anything that Warner offers at the moment that Age doesn't, except for age. But also, this isn't meant to be a development year. Yep. We're supposed to be past this. Play your best players. Yep. Murphy Reid, there's a good player in there. There's a very good player in Murphy Reid. Yep. Luke Ryan.
You can't go through every player. You can't go through every player.
Okay, he's the last one because I've almost had enough of Luke Ryan.
Fair enough.
For an All-Australian squad player in defence, he can't defend. And while it's great when he's getting 25 touches and lasering players 60 metres away, that's not happening, so it becomes a liability. There's one more player. Banfield, never again. Never again.
Yeah.
Never again.
No, hard to argue. We will say this. Bolton was fantastic. Clark was fantastic. Brayshaw was fantastic. Dudley is a great player, but shouldn't be a sub. It doesn't make any sense to have him as a sub at all.
You're so tactically limited with that.
Yeah, 100%. But no, kudos to Melbourne. We'll bring it back to the winners. Kudos to them.
Do we have to?
Well, just quickly, we'll touch base. It'd be rude not to in case we have any Melbourne Demon supporters listening.
What if Dave's a Melbourne Demon supporter?
It could be. Thanks for listening on Amazon, Dave. 16-11-107 is a good score for them. Obviously, limited to, an average of 51 or 60 for this year?
They had more at halftime than they had at any other game during the season. How bad is that from a Fremantle point of view?
Yeah, it is pretty bad, but it's good for Demons. It's probably going to be a good little kickstart for them. Hopefully, we hope that they don't just regress back to what they've been doing. In the previous weeks. Now that they've got their win, and they've got
soft weeks coming up too, so they've got to use this as a launching pad.
100%. Let's move on real quick before we get going on that again. Next game, it's very rainy Adelaide Oval on Saturday. The Crows 7-10-52 defeating the GWS Giants 4-10-34. My dad texted me after this game and said, "Did these guys play a full game?" I was like, "Yes, Dad, they sure did." But it's a very low score. It's a very low score, but it was a very, very tough conditions down in Adelaide. But still, 40,062 rocked up to watch them, which is very good. Jesse, your thoughts on this game?
Oh, it was a hard-fought game. There's been a lot of poo-pooing of this game as being bad. And I get that because it's a really low score. But the conditions, and more so the wind than the rain, but the conditions at Adelaide Oval were not conducive to the way either of those teams like to play. So what we saw was a really interesting tactical insight into how things can change in Kingsley and Nix's world within their control. And simply put, Nix did it better. He managed to redeploy key players, get a lot of his ball users to just lower those eyes a bit, build it up, and let your stars, when they have the opportunity, guys like Rankin, let them produce the magic when they get the opportunity because they're very good players. Giants, you look at the numbers, I mean, they were, in many ways, were the better team across the night or the day. They had more of the ball. They used the ball better across the board. They had less free kicks, which that was a few very cross Giants fans in the cold lights. But at the end of the day, Giants never hit the front at any point in that game.
Umpires are just trying to even up that free kick tally across the year because obviously the Adelaide fans have been hard done by, Jesse, don't you know?
They've been
hard done by.
But no, just going through a lot of the key numbers in here, apart from inside 50s, which Adelaide got the better of the Giants in, a lot of it does fall in GWS's favour. I think it was just a case of Adelaide played the conditions better, which I do think is slightly alarming for the Giants.
Okay.
Because I've still had those questions about how do they adapt. Their two losses this season, Hawthorn in bad conditions, Adelaide in bad conditions. Two very good sides. Let's not undermine that.
Mm-hmm.
But does everything have to be GWS's way for them to win a game? Or can they win ugly or against their pattern? Right now, I think the answer is no.
No, it's not panic stations, but it's an
No.
interesting thought though, because there's a few teams this year, Freo included, who definitely don't have that ability to adjust on the fly.
Yeah.
And the Giants, for them, if it's only the weather, that's pretty good. It's just putting it down to the heavens as to if you're gonna have a good game or not. But for the most part, they're no troubles, no dramas. It'd be fine. It was a blustery match. Adelaide though, that's important for them. That's really solidifies themselves as a contender this year. And we're starting to see the contenders, and like you said before, we'll talk about this next week, but the contenders really set themselves apart from the rest of the competition. And they're making a case for themselves to be right up there come the start of September. So good on the Crows. Love to see them get a win every now and then. And this year, it's a lot. Let's move on to the next game, Jesse, shall we?
Yes.
Yes. There we go. There we go. Richmond, 12-8-80. Defeating the Suns, 9-15-69 at Marvel. Well, they did it again, didn't they? The Richmond Tigers just popping up, handing the Suns their first loss of the year. Jesse, I didn't get it. I saw snippets of this one,
yeah.
But from what it looked like to me is it wasn't a case of the Suns weren't the better team, but the Tigers, much like they did against Carlton, just made the most of every opportunity that was given to them, converted a lot, and was enough to kind of get them the win.
Yeah, and they did it in a different way. They played very much like they did against Fremantle the previous week in the Barossa. They got going early. They presented themselves as a threat early. But the key difference was here. After halftime in that third quarter, 6-1 third quarter. It just got them enough. At last quarter, 2 behinds to 5 goals.
Yeah.
5 goals, 5. So on one hand, Gold Coast will go away from this feeling very disappointed they couldn't get the job done. And regardless of, Richmond aren't probably going to be that amazing this year, but they've also won 2 games. Yeah. This is a big problem for me with the Suns, and I think it's one of the reasons I haven't been as willing to go all in on them as a lot of people have been. We haven't seen them do it with any level of consistency. Now, they got the better of the Crows by 1 point at People First a couple of weeks ago. But the key thing there is that they were under siege those last 3 minutes and were probably relatively lucky with a couple of non-decisions by the umpires to not at least have to defend another shot at goal. Here, they were behind. They had to be composed, had to convert, and they couldn't do it. Yeah. I still think they're a bit off being the side they need to be. They've got the start that should see them be very close to making finals this year, which is a big step forward for the football club. But I think we really need to taper our expectations a bit across the board, especially away from home. I don't think we've quite cured those heebie-jeebies from last season.
Fair enough. I think the Tigers are going to be my vibe team from now on. Just like any week, I feel like they're going to cause an upset. I'm just going to tip them. No matter who it's against. What's that? Collingwood, Tigers going to win.
Go for it.
Because they just might,
You mad lad. Jonty Ford, I think there's a player in him too.
Yeah.
I liked what I saw from him. Obviously losing Armstrong. Next man up type mentality for the Tigers, and you're looking at kids when you're talking their depth at the moment. I think Jonty did quite a good job. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do.
I think the Tigers are going to be okay. I think give them 3 or 4 years together. They've picked up a lot of classy young players in their draft haul from late last year into this year. So I think definitely going to be a team to watch and be scared of in the years to come. That's for sure. Let's move on to the next game. Sunday, April 20th at the SCG. We had the Swans 10-17-77 losing to the Port Adelaide Power 13-7-85. The carbon copy of last week for Port Adelaide just burst out of the gates. Why not? Just get a massive lead ahead. I think it was just like 50-10 at one stage. And I was just like, the Swans are done. The Swans are done. And as soon as I said that, Swans kicked like 3 goals in a row. And it was back on. But very similar to last week, the Power died towards the end of the game. They definitely turned off to put the brakes on a little bit, not because they wanted to, but just because how it worked out. And if it wasn't for Sydney absolutely spraying, like most of those 17 behinds, I'm pretty sure came in the last quarter. I think they kicked 5 goals, 8 in the last quarter or something like that, which is a pretty it's a disappointing loss for Sydney in that regard because it was definitely gettable for them. But it was, even I was frustrated. I'm not a Sydney fan, and I was watching them, and every single time they went down, did something really great, made a tackle, pressure act, all that stuff, got down to the forward line, sprayed it behind, out of the full. Just needed one of those to go through, and it would have been a much different kind of kettle of fish. I say one more. They kicked 5 goals still in the last quarter, I'm pretty sure. Am I wrong, Jesse? Are you checking that stat for me now?
5 goals, 8.
I was correct. That's rare. So it's not like they didn't do anything in that last quarter, but it goes to show how far ahead Port Adelaide got themselves. So it seems to be the way, if you stop Port early at the moment, if you stop them in the first quarter, second quarter, or keep yourself kind of even, then they're going to be in for a rough ride for the rest of the game, just based on the last couple of weeks.
I'm really, really concerned for the Swans.
A little concerned this week, Jesse.
They're 2-4.
Yeah.
But taking out West Coast, not considered to be a finals threat. Melbourne, unlikely to be a finals threat. Essendon, I feel unlikely to be a finals threat. Richmond, unlikely to be a finals threat. So teams I think we all had somewhere in our bottom 6. Take out those 4, no other side has scored less than Sydney have in 2025.
Wow, really?
So North have outscored them. Fremantle have outscored them. Carlton have outscored them. St Kilda have outscored them.
Wow.
Sydney can't score goals. They can't do it. And right now, you need to be able to put 12, 13, 14 goals on the board to win games of football. Look what Port did. They had 20 opportunities. They took 13 of those.
Yep.
Sydney had 27 opportunities and took 10.
Yep.
Right now, for me, that metric is all you need to know about the Swans. They are ineffective going forward. I don't think they'll make finals.
Yeah,
Because
I mean, you've said that from day dot though. This year, you've kind of had that feeling about the Swans since the get-go. Since the beginning.
The sides they beat North on a day that I think they kicked 60 at best, and that was easily the Swans' highest scoring day.
Mm-hmm.
So they won there, and they beat Fremantle with a sub-70 score.
Yes.
That's 2 games that you'd say, yeah, okay, if you're going to take on. And I think we said this last week, defensively minded teams, or teams that are still working through their identity. Porter have a slightly more attacking style. They attacked Sydney. Sydney rolled over, and then Port rolled over. But Sydney's deficiency still prevented them from winning this game.
Any reprieve once Papley comes back? Amadi?
I don't know, because Amadi's been there. I know he's out now, but he was there at the start of the season, and the problems were still present.
True.
He's probably their best key forward, but I don't know if that's a huge bar to clear at the moment, or if that particularly sets a much higher standard for Sydney. Papley is dangerous and can influence, but I think you're looking at 10 goals here, maybe 11 or 12. That still doesn't win this game.
Yeah.
Well, 11 doesn't, 12 does.
Yeah. No, good show. It'd be interesting to see how the Swans go moving forward, because I think they've got a fairly interesting test coming up next week against the Suns up north. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know about Port Adelaide either. Like, I really don't know. Like, they seem to have all the pieces there, but there seems to be that little bit of, what do you call it? The icing on the cake, Jesse?
Yeah, Port need to get a streak going and be streaky. Yeah. They've got 2 in a row now. They need to roll with that. Roll
on. As shall we. Next game. We've got this is a smashing as well. Sunday, April 20 at Marvel. The Bulldogs 18-19, 127, defeating St Kilda 8-8, 56 in front of 35,511. Geez, Ross the boss was pretty frustrated in the coach's box throughout this one, because they had no answers at all for a Bulldogs outfit that just, one of the teams I love to watch this year, the Bulldogs, because they're all playing for each other. They all seem to be out there doing what they need to do to win a game of football. Even if they don't, they're still out there giving it their absolute all, which is what you love to see in football. You'd love to see teams going out there and absolutely smashing it, being hard at it, all the stuff that I'm not getting from Fremantle this year. I'm getting from teams like the Bulldogs and Hawthorn and Geelong and
live vicariously.
You have to. I had to put a plus next to the best in our little graphic here, because it was really hard to determine three best players for the Bulldogs in this particular game, because it was such a massive team effort. Bontempelli was huge in his return.
Yes.
He was fantastic. Obviously, Kennedy's always been he's been a solid pickup. Riley West's been really good as well. Onwards you go. Onwards you go. Can't say the same about the Saints in this game. They looked like they had no answers whatsoever.
No, this was an absolute pasting, and I think not being triple digits is kind on the Saints. I was very surprised at how poor they were, and this reminded me a lot of the Adelaide game earlier in the season for St Kilda, where they just looked so un-Ross-like. And this was a case of they looked directionless. Going through their goal scorers, Higgins was excellent, as was Owens, but that's 68 goals. You know, your tools have stayed at home. Max King's gone for more surgery. I think it's a worry for the Saints. You know, they've gotten 3-3 to start the season, but they've now lost their last two and have to play Brisbane next week.
Yeah.
I think you're worried. I think it's a problem for them now that while they've shown more of an attacking output this season, that's been great to see. They're getting a lot of things wrong in the defensive half, and Dog's ability to hunt and put pressure on it. The clearances were an absolute mauling. It wasn't even close. I mean, Rowan Marshall struggled almightily against him. He wasn't even jumping for half of them.
Yeah.
English was having an absolute holiday out there, and it was very, very easy for the Dogs to move that ball from defensive 50 to attack, and so often it was a player over the top.
Yeah.
In 20 metres of space saying, thank you, this is the easiest goal of my life.
Good news for the Dogs as well. It doesn't look like Darcy's done any major injury to his knee, even though it looked nasty at the time.
It did look very nasty.
Looked very, very nasty, but it looks like he's avoided any ACL rupture, which is good.
It does sound like home and away season's done, though. You might get him back for finals if they make it.
They make it, yeah.
But that's going to make things hard because Norton's not having a good year. Does Rory Lobb go back forward? I know he was up there for a little bit.
They try to get him into it. They try to get into it, yeah. Norton had a better game in this game. He had a better one. And I feel like Norton's a confidence player. Once he gets a few going, hopefully he'll be okay. But they were trying so desperately to get the ball to Rory Lobb. I thought it had something to do with like a charity because obviously he had the
Good Friday appeal here, yeah.
Yeah, the Good Friday appeal here. So I thought that if he kicked a goal, they were going to do something nice. But I think they were just trying to get Rory into the game, see if he could make it as a forward again. But he's doing quite well at back, so why would you do that? All right, let's move on to the final game of the round, Jesse. That was today at time of recording, Monday, April 21st at the G. 12-14-86 to Geelong, defeating the Hawks 11-13-79 in front of 88,746. A massive crowd who watched basically a finals game. It was like finals-like atmosphere, that game. It was it was a cracker. It was an absolute cracker. I think the Hawks would be ruining a few of their chances, especially late in the game. Actually, throughout the game, their set shot for goal, which is normally one of their attributes, they just could not get that right today. Couldn't get it right. Gunston was missing everything. He was putting things out of bounds on the full. That doesn't happen.
No.
That doesn't happen.
Ever. But then so would Geelong.
Well, that's right. That's true. Absolutely. But Geelong just too classy. Held this one out. Did what they had to do. Jesse, your thoughts on this game?
Great game of footy, wasn't it?
Oh, wasn't it just?
This is what you want to see. This is what you want to see from finals contending sides.
Yep.
And you've put it there in the bottom of your takeaway. The gap between the best and the rest widens week by week.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's probably 6 teams that we can talk about next week in that contention bracket right now. These two are firmly in and amongst it. What a game of footy. There was drama. There was spice. You know, Bailey Smith doing the old gotcha with the ball into the face of
Carl Impey. It was Carl Eamon or Impey? It was Impey, wasn't it? Yeah.
And then obviously a very agricultural tackle or something attempt by Connor Nash. He was doing something.
That'll be a talking point next week if he doesn't get at least 3 weeks.
Oh, I'll be cross if he doesn't get 3 weeks.
If he doesn't get at least 3 weeks,
if he doesn't get 3 weeks,
I will actually be okay making a thumbnail for our little special bit that we'll talk about that'll say Vic bias confirmed. It'll just say that because it'll be true. Okay. But let's see. Let's see what happens. Let's not get too carried away with it.
Let's not preempt the tribunal's decision. I don't think that's like contempt of tribunal. I know you can have contempt of court. Yeah. Hopefully it's not contempt of tribunal. Give him 3 weeks. Look, I don't think it's panic stations for Hawthorn. Yes, they've lost 2 on the bounce, but I think they've finished both games quite well. I know they were Roo inaccuracy late, but I think a lot of the work around the ground was very good, and I still think Sam Mitchell's instilled a very strong game sense into this side. So no reason to panic just yet. Geelong, professional Geelong, we talk about it all the time. They win games of football and they win them in a professional manner, and they're going to be very hard to beat if you're an all-out attacking side like an Adelaide or a Hawthorn in a preliminary final in front of 90,000 people. That's going to make things really, really dicey if Geelong have that home prelim against Adelaide or Hawthorn have the home prelim against Geelong at the G. It's going to make it a very, very interesting matchup.
Yeah,
I think Geelong's the one team you don't want to play in the finals this year. Looking at the rest of the contenders, play each other, avoid Geelong would be what I'd be hoping for.
Yep, hard to argue. And if you're a ladder purist and you only take how good a team is based on the ladder, it's 6th and 7th for these two at the moment, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But that's fine. I think they've both had a pretty, not tough start to the year, but a pretty a much harder start than some of the other teams that might be around them at the moment. So you expect to see them jump up the ladder. That is for sure. Anything else, Jesse, before we send the lovely people home?
No, I think we've done a pretty good job to blaze through everything. What was a big round?
Yeah, it was a huge round. Send them home then. Do it.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. Make sure you are liking, sharing, subscribing, and reviewing us if you're on a preferred podcasting platform. But, of course, the best review is word of mouth. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell whoever you bought the Easter chocolates from for the rest of the week when they're 50% off at the supermarket. Make sure, first of all, if this to work, don't tell the self-checkout because self-checkouts can't listen to podcasts. But if you go through a human scanner, make sure you let them know that you listen to the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. Until next time, catch us on Just the Tips as well over on YouTube. But until then, we'll see you soon on the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast.
Bye, everybody.